Like the idea that he picks up the phone with anybody and says, hey, like I'm going to take orders from you. No, that's just not how Donald Trump operates.
Could you understand, though, why people would come to that conclusion, especially because of the Epstein files?
What do you mean?
Well, the Epstein files were supposed to be released, and there was a tremendous amount of resistance to those files being released, and that concerned a lot of people. Because if you're talking about very wealthy, powerful people that were engaged in crimes,
you're basically saying like the fear is that whatever's in the Epstein files was used to blackmail like the administration into doing the Iran thing.
Or at the very least, the people that were involved in the Epstein files that didn't want them coming out had undue influence.
Well, again, like, say this with all candor, like, we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files. Like, we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No.
JD Vance was on the Joe Rogan Experience for the most disgusting display of ball licking, manipulation, deflection, and evil intent that I have seen to date on JRE. When the topic of the Epstein files came up, the number of logical fallacies, victim narratives, unfounded claims, and clear and obvious talking points JD employed was insane. This man wouldn't know how to tell the truth if his life depended on it, as he is in way too deep. His justification for why the Epstein files aren't a cover-up was bogus, and he could neither defend nor stand up for any of his excuses. It felt really clear to me, at least, that we were just watching one man trying to trick the audience and Joe into thinking he's trustworthy, and ironically, I think it did the opposite, and people will trust JD Vance less after watching this. Take a look.
But where Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, says, well, we know JD's a conspiracy theorist on this. Like I am, actually. I've gone down every rabbit hole here. I'll say this with all candor, like we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files. Like we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein files is one, you know, Pam Bondi said, the client list is on my desk, right?
Well, they had binders. They were standing in front.
But those binders were largely documents that had already been released. Look, so there's the theory that whether it was American intel or foreign intel, that Epstein was sort of using sort of the sex ring to blackmail rich and powerful people.
It was clear that he was trying to get people to get together on the island and meet at parties. So there was something he was doing where he was trying to either influence people or compromise people.
Correct.
So it's not – there's some sort of an operation that was going on.
There is a story there, and, you know, I will go to my deathbed believing there's a story there, but I can't prove it. And I promise you there's not some document that at least I'm hiding that allows us to prove exactly what was going on.
So first of all, fuck this guy for lying his face off. There is prosecutable evidence in the files now that we all have access to. So how can you blatantly lie and say there is nothing in there? And it's wild to say, I will go to my grave believing there's more to this Epstein files conspiracy when you already have the evidence that proves there's more readily available to you. Like, this man must have no soul whatsoever at this point from his own brainwashing and torture, because why else say that? Bringing up his grave way down the line also makes it seem like the Epstein files are a lost cause and something that we can no longer gain anything from looking into in the present. He is subtly trying to push the public into accepting there's nothing that can be done, which is 100% false and a disgusting thing to believe, let alone try to convince the American people of. From the minute they started discussing the Epstein files, JD was locked and loaded with talking points, and he knew he had a narrative to spin, and he was going to spin it. The first thing I noticed was how he repeatedly said that he was an Epstein conspiracy theorist and that he had gone down the rabbit hole. First of all, if JD really had gone down the rabbit hole, then they wouldn't even be having this conversation because he would have stepped down as vice president and would be prosecuting Trump as we speak, so we know he's already lying. Second of all, I think JD actually said he was seen as a conspiracy theorist to artificially imply credibility and knowledge, as a conspiracy theorist would likely have investigated heavily. It's a logical fallacy called credibility borrowing. He is also employing a technique called preemptive deflection when he says things like, "I say this with all candor." It is a way to get an audience to trust you and to frame your upcoming statements in believability. When JD even mentions that the White House Chief of Staff sees him as a conspiracy theorist, he is committing another logical fallacy of appeal to authority and false authority, and he is only saying it to try to get people to further trust that what he is saying is true. People who are actually telling the truth don't seem to do this. The more someone tries to persuade you about why or how they should be believed, rather than focusing on why their version of facts are to be believed, the more you should question their intentions. The best part of their discussion for me was when JD is asked if he believes that there was malicious intent involved in the Epstein files, and he answers no with this elongated drawl. That is a major lying tell. When someone is being truthful, they are defiant, and a truthful no would have been short and sharp most likely. When someone is saying no deceptively, you'll notice the word is often elongated due to the mental load of having to lie, and some psychologists believe the elongation is just a physiological reaction to having to actually get the lie out. Meaning lying becomes a physical struggle against his own vocal cords because of the cognitive dissonance involved. Also notice when he says no, the tone is not firm, and he gets quieter as he says it and kind of peters out, whereas when someone is speaking the truth, they get more emphatic. The cognitive dissonance seems to really trip people up, as if your physical body has such a problem lying that you become a little like Jim Carrey in Liar Liar and the words just cannot come out well. Ultimately, I've known this JD Vance guy was a lying, pandering, paltering, manipulative, creepy weirdo since the day I found out his White House photo wasn't a joke, so this interview doesn't really mean anything to me, but I'm curious to know if the veil is finally being lifted for Americans and if you see through JD Vance's lies. Because it's easy for me as a Canadian to say, I thought JD Vance was always a psycho, but do people still support him in the US? Or are you guys pretty over him like we are along with our own disgusting Prime Minister? Let me know, and thank you so much for watching.